holidays and it's almost the new year. Whoa! Cannot believe this year has just flown by. It's been so fast. But I am trying to squeeze in one last project for the year, and that is, of course, making my Molly McIntire Christmas dress. So in the book Molly Surprise, she wears this beautiful dark green velvet dress for Christmas Eve service, and it's actually talked about in the book. It talks about her putting on this dress and then going to church for the candlelight Christmas Eve service. So, to go to my church's Christmas Eve candlelight service, I want to be sure to have this dress done so that I can wear it and be just like Molly. Now, I actually did not own this dress as a child. I did own Emily's purple dress because, well, my favorite color is purple, so that's kind of how that happened. And I absolutely love her dress, but I was like, oh my gosh, now this would be the time to, like, you know, correct my collection and get myself one. They sadly do not make this anymore. That you can't get it from American Girl Doll. Even when they re-released some of Molly's outfits, they didn't release her Christmas dress. So I went to eBay and I found the cheapest one that I could that still looked alright. And it did have a couple holes on the waistband and on the shoulder, but I sewed those up. You can't tell. I know where they were, and I'm actually having a hard time like remembering. Oh, it's like there, but I had to look. So I am very excited to have this dress and then also recreate one for me. Now this dress, I am actually going to be not recreating it as precisely as I did with Molly Learns a Lessons dress. This one is more going to be inspired by. I have never been like a huge fan of the exact cut of this dress for something for like me to wear. I feel like it looks very kind of kid-ish in a way. It's super cute for Molly, but I don't see myself wearing it if it's like this. I actually have a Vogue pattern that I thought would make a really great dress out of a gauze. Of course we're going to stick with green velvet. If it's not green velvet, it's not Molly's Christmas dress. So we have this beautiful green velvet and also this Vogue pattern, and put those two together to make Molly's Christmas dress. Now, the fabric that I had is actually, it's very on theme for Molly's stories. I am remaking a dress. One of the first dresses I ever made was a Christmas ball gown, and I thought it was fantastic at the time. Well, actually I didn't. I did have issues with it at the time, but I really tried. I really wanted to make this beautiful Christmas ball gown look like a giant Barbie, and I did. It was a wearable dress, and you can see me wearing it here. We won't go on into everything that's wrong with it, but it's enough to where I only wore it for pictures once. Now twice. And some of those pictures I do think made it onto a Christmas card once upon a time. That was about it. But this ball gown does have a lot of fabric in it, so I unpicked the entire ball gown and then reused the fabric to make a new dress, which is just such a Molly thing to do during wartime. I actually, while researching this dress, learned that one of the reasons why it's short-sleeved is because they said they were saving material due to war rationing shortages. Because I've always wondered, like, why is her Christmas dress like short-sleeved? Like, it's December, it's cold, usually we have a long sleeve situation going on, but it makes sense. Wartime. We all make sacrifices, like short sleeves in the winter. Now, I'm very excited to get to show you everything that I did to recreate this, and I really hope it turns out how I imagine, because if it turns out how I imagine it, it's going to be great. I'll be using Vogue pattern 9346, which dates from 1947. Now please enjoy this video montage of me cutting out the pattern and the fabric.
Once everything had been cut out, I started working on the bodice. Now, the bodice and the skirt for this pattern actually were more complicated than I had originally anticipated. So this is the bottom of the bodice. There is then also a large yoke piece. This bodice piece has 2 darts, one on the side for the bust and then one on the bottom for the waist. So I went ahead and I marked those with pins and then pinned the darts. I realized pretty early on that I could not use my pen because this fabric did not like it. It just did not take. The blue marking that I had was too small. Now, if you watched my last video about making the blouse for Molly Learns a Lesson outfit, you might recall how I was very confused by these 2 lines that were on the bottom of the blouse, and I thought perhaps it's a weird pleat or maybe a weird dart, but they are indeed tucks, which I found out thanks to some of my lovely subscribers who left me comments letting me know exactly what it is, because it was not labeled on that pattern. Thankfully, it was labeled on this pattern, and it would have been nice if it was labeled on the other one, but here we are. A tuck is a narrow fold of fabric that is used to decorate clothes. Tucks are usually sewn vertically and or parallel, close together in the chest area of a blouse or a festive men's shirt. The small pleats emphasize the desired area, hide darts, and also help to shape the silhouette. There are no tucks that I have ever encountered in 1800s sewing, which is mostly what I have done. And now as I am venturing more into the 20th century, the 1900s, I am finding that tucks are far more common, especially in the 1940s. I think they kind of go out of style by the 1950s, but if you look at some of those beautiful Edwardian clothes, tucks, especially pin tucks, which are really, really tiny tucks, very, very popular. All of the tucks in this outfit are on the back. So on the back of the bodice and then also on the back of the skirt, which we'll get to later. But look how fun that is. Now I'm going to work on the top front of the bodice, which is this giant yoke. We just ironed some interfacing onto it and then stitching that interfacing and that facing together to form the yoke of the bodice. I then attached the yoke to the bottom of the bodice. So I kind of did this a little bit not like how the pattern said to do it. The pattern said to fold down the bottom part and then stitch, like top stitch it. And with this stretchy velvet that I'm working with, I just did not feel like that was going to work. So I just put right sides together and stitched it, and it worked out. I then pinned the front and back of the bodice together. I completely sewed down one side and then I left a little gap on the other side because that is where parts of the fastening is going to go, so I can actually get this dress on over my head. I then took it to my machine and stitched all of those seams down.
Look at it! Look at it! I am so excited with how this is looking so far. I was not sure how I was going to like the yoke right here and how the line was going to play with my bust line. It's great. I think it's perfect. I think the people in the 1940s knew what they were doing. And of course I have this seam sewn. This seam is not, it will be either hook and eye or snap or whatever I decide to do. It'll close, it'll also be attached to the skirt. I'm glad that this is a little stretchy material because even though I cut it out to the size that I was supposed to have, it does feel a little tight, but I think that's mostly because of the back tucks. Can we have a moment for the back? It looks so good. I think that's my favorite part, like, so far. Like, I love the back of this. It looks so good. I am such a fan of 40s fashion right now. I just, I love it. Of course, now when I do wear this dress, my hair is pretty long. I'm going to have to wear it up. I'm hoping to wear this to a tea that my mom and grandma and friend are going to, which will be on Friday. And right now it is Friday. So I have a whole week to get the rest of this done. I think the rest of it should go together fairly easy compared to the bodice. The bodice and the facings are always like the hardest for me, and some of the little finishing touches, like putting on the buttons. I actually just found the perfect buttons in my stash for this that look like Molly's but are just going to work so perfectly for this. I'm also thinking of adding a lace collar that is not in the pattern, but I want it to look more like Molly's, because right now I feel like I am very much in the style of Molly's dress, but we're doing a little bit fun, a little bit more grown up, a little bit more stylish because we're adults ideas. But I definitely want to stay true and definitely be like, oh yeah, it's Molly's dress. Like, we definitely see like the crossover just besides the green velvet, which I'm really liking the green velvet. I'm really excited that I got to remake one of my first dresses into another dress that hopefully I will actually wear. And I definitely think I am. Like I said, I was going to wear it to the tea, that Christmas tea that my mom and grandma and I are going to. And then I also, of course, want to wear it to my church's Christmas Eve service, because that's what Molly does in the stories. This is when she really wears that dress, is to go to her church's Christmas Eve service. And I think that's just always, I love Christmas Eve services. And the picture that is in Molly's surprise is just, it reminds me so much of my family in Christmas Eve, all sitting on a pew. We all have those little white candles when we sing Silent Night, and it's just one of those things where it just feels like it just transcends time, you know. It's just like, well, oh yeah, that's like, I lived that. So I definitely want to wear it to my church's Christmas Eve service. But I think I'm done sewing for tonight, and I'll pick back up tomorrow morning.
Now, with the bodice rather complete, I began working on the skirt. The skirt also has a lot of tucks on the back, which go down in a nice crescent moon-like shape. Smaller tucks on the outside of the skirt, and then the longest tucks are in the center of the skirt, just like on the back of the bodice. I love the look of these, and I think it looks super great with the fabric. I like these a lot, but they were incredibly tedious to pin and then to stitch down. Incredibly tedious tucks, but it's all worth it for the end result, right? There were, I believe, 10 tucks on the skirt and the same number on the bodice, so 20 tucks in all in this outfit, and then also 4 darts. It's a lot of fabric manipulation, and it's really interesting, and I haven't done all that much of, not this much in one space of this type of fabric manipulation. And there were no gathers, it was just tucks, no pleats, just tucks. So it was really interesting to try my hand at this new method and learn more about it. I then began assembling the ties that go at the front of the waist. They are super cute and kind of form this little belt that just goes on the front, and I am very happy with how these turned out. So they're just, of course, little strips. They have a nice diagonal cut on the end, which at first looked like a kind of like one of those cuts that you put on the end of a bow, but then I stitched it down, turned them right side out, pressed them, and then sewed them onto the back yoke of the skirt. Or at least that's where they will go once I actually sew the back yoke of the skirt on. That's the next step. Now, when attaching the yoke to the back of the skirt, I also did the same thing where I just put the right sides together and then pinned them together and stitched it down, which is not what the instructions said to do. But again, because of the fabric, the stretchiness of it, and how it just generally is, that's how I decided to do it. If I was going to do it the more tailored way that they suggested, I think I definitely could if I had more of a structured fabric, which I think this dress would also look fantastic in a more heavier, more structured fabric. But also, I found that this fabric and having it a little stretchy was very helpful because it got very tight with all of those tucks. I also think I did the tucks a little bit wonky because the yoke had a little bit of extra fabric on one side, and I thought about going back and redoing everything, but I didn't because time is limited and it wasn't that bad. It would be okay. And I think I kind of tried it on for my husband. I was like, can you really tell that this is a few inches off? And he's like, no. So here we are. I attached the ties, which will tie in the front of the skirt, and I also attached the front of the skirt to the back of the skirt and stitched it all down.
So I have tried on the skirt portion of the dress to make sure it fits. And you know, it's fitting over my pants and my bulky sweater that I have tucked into it. So I was a little nervous it wasn't going to get around my derriere, but it did. I'm glad that this material is stretchy, because if it wasn't, we might have a wee bit of a problem. Now it does look a little weird right here, but I think once I do not have a sweater on, it will be better. Now I also realized I sewed this wrong. I folded the little fun little strap thing the wrong way, but that's nothing a seam ripper cannot fix, so I can just go zip, zip, and fix that. This side is open. It will have snaps or something that hold it together. I'm still trying to, the pattern said snaps, so I'm trying to decide if I want to do snaps or if I want to do something else. Oh, I'm working on it. I do love how the tucks look in the back. I think that this section does look great, and that is this dress. It is all about the back. All of the drama is going on in the back, so I've got to focus on there. So I'm pleased. I am pleased. After I fix my little strap situation, it's then time to attach the bodice to the skirt, and then I have a dress question mark? Like, whoa. Well, maybe I put the sleeves on. No, it says to do the bodice and then the sleeves. So we will do the bodice and then the sleeves. Alright. It's really coming together. I think this is going to look really nice.
So now with the skirt together and with the bodice together, it is time to attach them. So I turn the skirt inside out, same with the bodice, and then now that they're right sides together, I am going to pin them and stitch around. It was a little hard to pin down all of the tucks. Now the pattern did say to stitch all of the tucks down, but I did not do that. I did not think it would be visually appealing with this type of fabric. This velvet, just having a line of stitching would honestly make it look worse, and I thought it looked really pretty how it was. So I was not about to mess with that, and therefore just pinned them all very carefully and sewed them all very carefully so that hopefully it will look good once the bodice and the skirt are together.
All right. I mean, it's a dress. It's fitting. I again think the back is the coolest part. Obviously. I also think that there's I was trying to make it is this supposed to fit really tight, or I guess it kind of like just blouses up here at the top a little bit, but like it looks nice. I think it kind of is a little plain right now, but once I get the buttons and some trim and sleeves, I think it'll look really good. The side where it's supposed to come together is doing all right. It's being a little wonky, but I think once I actually just get the actual hooks and pins and snaps there, it should be fine. So need to hem it. Yeah, but otherwise, it looks like a dress.
It is now time to construct the sleeve. So I unpinned it from the pattern, looked what I was dealing with here. There are actually 3 pleats that are going to be done at the elbow of the sleeve, which create a nice little ripple and room for the elbow to move. I went ahead and I stitched those pleats down before creating the sleeve. I folded the sleeve in half and then pinned it along the back center seam. I then stitched down this seam and also put a gathering stitch around the top of the sleeve, which is basically just the lowest tension setting and just a one little line of stitching that I then gathered, because the sleeves are supposed to be gathered. But as I was setting the sleeves into, also you can see Lucky is being incredibly helpful right now. But as I was setting the sleeves into the bodice, I realized that the sleeves were barely gathered. I had to spread out my gathers so much that I wouldn't even really consider this dress to have gathered sleeves. It was gathered mainly just to help round out the shoulder, but it didn't have like that big poof on the sleeve that I was anticipating because of the gathers. It's more because of the cut of the fabric that it has that kind of poofed look, because originally the pattern did call for shoulder pads, which I hope to put in at some point.
So I have the sleeves on. I'm liking it more with the sleeves because I'm kind of like, all the fun stuff is happening in the back. I think the back is great, but like, I don't know, the front just feels a little plain, but I think once I get like the trim on and the buttons and all of that, it'll be good. The sleeves feel like a little weird, and it feels like a little like drapey back here, and that's because I think it wants shoulder pads. The pattern called for shoulder pads, and I don't have any, and it's too late to go get them, and I'm running out of time because I need this done by like tomorrow at noon. So I think I'm just going to make some. Like, I have batting, I have a little bit of fabric, like I can just make a shoulder pad. Like, it shouldn't be that hard, right? I can make a shoulder pad. So I'm going to add that step to my finishing touches of this. But otherwise, like, it's pretty much together. Need to put in a zipper, hem, trim, buttons. So otherwise pretty well together. Now it's just time for all those like final touches that are really going to make the outfit. Because I think the trim and the buttons and stuff are really going to be like, oh yeah, that's what makes it look like Molly's dress. Because right now it's just kind of green.
I was so beyond happy to find these buttons in my button stash, because look how perfectly they match Molly's buttons on the front of her dress. Now, I think this is an interesting point. Not all of the Molly Surprise dresses have buttons. Originally, there were no buttons on the dress. In the first issue of the dress, the first version of the book, there are no buttons. It's just a plain front. But then buttons get added. It's the exact same dress, but with buttons for the second and third and subsequent issues of the book and the dress. So the dress that I ended up getting, and the one that I am most familiar with and I think had been out for the longest amount of time, is the dress with the buttons. So we went ahead, did the buttonholes, sewed on the buttons. Now, that's not the only fastening that I have to do, because I also need to put in something on the side originally the pattern called for like hooks and eyes or snaps. I wasn't really feeling any of that. I put in a zipper, which again, which is theoretically historically accurate. I'm sure my zipper is a whole different, it's more plastic and it would have been more metal and wartime rationing and whatever. But I felt better with a zipper being there because the way that it was closing on the side because of the tucks was a little weird. So I felt very secure with a zipper, and therefore that is what I did. I then put a double folded hem on the bottom of the skirt, which was actually kind of tricky. It shouldn't be tricky, but because the fabric is the way it is and that it is slippery and shiny, it rolled a little bit, so I had to undo it and redo it. But finally we have made it to the final touches of this dress, and that is placing the trim around the collar and the sleeves. Molly has this beautiful lacy trim around her collar and on her sleeves, and miraculously, again, in my stash, I found this trim that is not identical but has the same feel as hers does. It was amazing. I've had this trim forever. It's actually was on like the second ball gown I ever made, my lavender one, and I just had extra that I've kept because I don't like to throw out pretty trim, and there was just enough to go around the collar and the cuffs, which was perfect. And I very much took inspiration from her dress about how to place it and how to sew it on, which direction it needed to go on the sleeves and all of that. So I hand sewed all of that on. Now, of course, just like every other Molly outfit that I've made, when I make the outfit, I also reread the story. And I really, really enjoyed getting to reread Molly's Surprise because I could see so many similarities and really see myself and my family in it. A lot of the traditions that the McIntires do, my family also does, including going to Christmas Eve service. Here is a section of chapter 4 from Molly's Surprise. At last, it was time for everyone to get ready to go to church for Christmas Eve service. As Molly put on her special green velvet Christmas dress, she felt relieved. The secret would be safe while they were all at church. Molly loved Christmas Eve service. The church was decorated with red and white poinsettias and garlands of pine and holly. A dark manger scene filled the front of the church. Everyone was given a small white candle to hold. The flame of Molly's candle flickered and danced as she listened to the words of the Christmas story. And suddenly, there was with the angel a multitude of heavenly hosts, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth, peace, goodwill towards men." Molly knew everyone in her family was thinking of Dad and hoping this Christmas would truly bring peace on earth so that he could come home. Maybe next Christmas, Dad will be here with us, thought Molly. She remembered how his deep voice sang out, "Silent night, holy night." Molly looked down the pew and she saw a tear caught like a tiny diamond in the corner of her mother's eye. Shining in the light of the candle, Molly bit her lip. Maybe we should have told her about the box, she thought. Maybe she wouldn't be so sad. The McIntires also have a tradition of having breakfast for dinner on Christmas Eve, which my family also participates in, but we go to Waffle House. Waffle House is a southern staple, especially in my home state of Georgia. It has been a holiday tradition since 1955, according to this sign in their window. So Molly has to wait about a decade to have dinner at Waffle House. Thank you so much for coming along on this journey with me. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you. Thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon who make this kind of video possible. And also thank you to all of you who have subscribed throughout the years. It's always a pleasure. I hope you have a wonderful new year.